Welcome to Evolve Your Blueprint,
where we explore the concept of evolving
and discuss our journey as individuals from diverse cultural backgrounds.
Our mission is to bring real conversations,
relate through storytelling,
and empower you to evolve with us. Let's evolve together.
Before we get started with our episode, we want to give a little disclaimer. We're going to talk about some very difficult topics today: ICE raids, immigration stress, detention centers. So we ask that you please check in with yourself as you're walking in or listening to this episode. Check in with your body. If you need a break, take a pause, come back to it, regulate your nervous system. Things may get difficult to hear. Take care of yourself.
Welcome back to Evolve Your Blueprint. We had to take a pause through this collective trauma that we're all experiencing. It was very important for us to sit with what was coming up personally, professionally, and with our community. So we're here. We're here to sit with you with what's coming up, to share, and to be with you as well. So thank you for tuning in. Guys, where are we at with regards to what's been happening in our communities, how we've been feeling ourselves, how our nervous system has been showing up, right? How a lot of us have been really dysregulated, feeling very ungrounded with the different emotions, images, stories that we've encountered, that we've seen. Yeah. How are you guys feeling?
It's been rough, you know. Mm-hmm. It's been rough. You know, when all this started happening, right, a couple months ago, I don't even know. Feels like it's forever. It's been like forever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've definitely been struggling myself, seeing a lot of this. I mean, the best word I can use is pain.
Yeah.
This collective pain. And yeah, it's been, you know, I've been noticing myself, especially when this was first started happening, at least in LA, that I just naturally started listening to more different types of music. That, I mean, I've always liked this music, right? But not so much now. But I would find myself playing a lot of Rage Against the Machine. I mean that it just like, you know, I think a lot of that music just really harnesses a lot of what I was feeling inside. The helplessness, the rage, the anger, the frustration. And then I would also find myself listening to a lot of, I love mariachi. I've always loved mariachi growing up. And there's a specific song from Vicente Fernandez. It's called Los Mandados. And I just instinctively, I haven't heard that song in years, right? Since I was a kid probably, but something I started looking for it, searching for it on my playlist on my phone. And I started playing that song more and more, and that would help a lot. And it would help, I guess, in me figuring out what exactly was going on internally inside me. As I was seeing the news, the headlines, these horrific videos of people being taken advantage of, and just treated inhumanely, it was difficult. And of course, I started flashing back to, this is familiar, unfortunately. And so I'm listening to this music, I'm seeing these videos, and I get this memory. I don't know when it was, but I grew up playing soccer or football. And I remember being at a training or a practice, right? We would practice at different schools. It was this middle school we were practicing. I was young. I was probably middle school-ish around there, that age. Yeah. And I remember at that time, I don't know if y'all remember, there was this proposition called 187. I believe it was called 187. I think it was called 187. I think it was Pete Wilson was our governor back in California back then. Yeah. But it was very familiar. It was a similar sentiment, right, of this. And I remember being in practice, and there was protests happening at the same time. So we were playing or, you know, doing our drills, and I see a bunch of people with signs saying no 187, no 187, or something like that. And I was really young. I mean, I knew it was like, it was scary, and I knew to be afraid of it. I knew it was like something we need to be careful of.
Yeah.
I know it definitely wasn't something that was an ally to us. I remember that. The whole soccer team were like, we kept playing because, I think we're still too young. We just knew it wasn't good, but we just kept playing our game, and it helped, obviously, to play. But so when I see this going on now, it's just bringing me back to this. I'm like, this is happening again and again, and I'm sure it's going to keep happening, unfortunately. But when you ask, like, how are we doing? Like, all of this is what's been on my mind. It's been in my nervous system. It's been in my body. And it's hard to manage, right? Because there's parts of me that feel obviously in pain and frustration, and there's parts of me that recognize, I think like we all were talking about it earlier, this privilege of, having certain kind of status in this country. Even though a lot of us have family members, like myself, have family members that do not have that privilege, not have that status. And, we're trying to hold both at the same time, which is nerve-wracking. It's nerve-wracking. But I think when the question, like, how am I doing, it's been very difficult.
It made me emotional listening to you share this, just because I think we're regathering, right? But we haven't talked about this for real like that. And it made me emotional listening to you, because your instinct to listen to music was mine too. I think to the question of like, how are we doing? I'll be honest in that, I mean, you all know, like I've been very nervous to talk about this today, just because I know that it's something I'm still processing myself. I think part of being a therapist and really wanting to show up for everybody that I see, I mean, obviously I go to therapy myself, but I think it's been a lot more of like, okay, this was a lot. I feel a lot, and how do I ground myself? And then next day, let me hold space. So I just feel like I'm still processing it. But for the music, right, it made me emotional to hear that from you, because it was my same instinct. It was one morning I woke up, and we went on this trip. I think it was last year with my dad's side of the family, which we don't see a lot there in Jalisco. And we went with my abuelita, mis tíos, mis tías, and it was so sweet. They made these mugs, and it's a mug with my grandpa, who passed about 10 years ago, and my grandma. And every now and then, whenever, and I don't know that it's super intentional, but every now and then I'm like, oh, I want to have a cup of coffee with my grandpa, And so that morning I woke up and I went and I made coffee, and I thought of him, and in thinking of him, it made me think about music. And I went and put on this song that we used to sing to him when we were little, and there was something that gave me strength in that, because I think it's been really, really painful to observe what feels like to me like our communities are not seen for what they really are. And so it's been painful. But to kind of use that moment to remember, to go like, hold on, like we are joy, hold on, we are courage, hold on, we are generations and generations of strength. It was really powerful. And so kind of hearing that you kind of did that too, I was like, damn, I see you in that, Yeah. But it's been hard, really hard.
We both share that. I'm sure a lot of us share that. I think that speaks something deeper, right? This piece, I think, Vidi, you mentioned this earlier, right? We have these instinctual ways to try at least to soothe ourselves, right? When we know something is not right.
Yeah.
I mean, this must go back generations, right?
Yes.
But it's this thing of music or coffee, like the smell of it, the taste of it, right? To just bring us back into something that we feel that's more safe, like healing, reparative, like, it's just, it feels like this thing I think that we have all deep inside, this like instinctual way to heal, to regulate for safety. I think we all have that deep inside. It's hard to listen to it, but I think in those moments, it just comes up, right? If we're listening. And I I mean, I would really encourage all of you all, especially listening to, ask yourself, what is that for you, if you have that or not, or if it's loud enough, if you can hear it, because we all do, we all have that.
I feel like I've gone through so many responses the last couple months with regards to the mass deportations and having family members that are undocumented and also sitting in my privilege, right, as well, and holding space for clients and sitting in my capacity every day, and that every day is so different, and being okay with that has been a process for myself. But I feel like in the beginning I was disconnected because it felt very overwhelmed. I was super overwhelmed by it. And then I felt very powerless. Like I didn't know what to do. And then when there was protestings happening, I'm like, I'm going to go out there, you know? And so I feel like I've experienced a lot, like a lot of different responses in the last couple months, from like rage to deep sadness, depression. Because I feel like also internally, personally, I was going through a lot of changes with family and my living situation. So there was a lot of grief happening personally for me. And then on top of that, grief societal wise, right? Like loss, deep loss, families being separated, and my brother moving to Arizona from Orange County. That was a voluntarily like separation, right? That was a choice that he had, and me seeing other families being separated, but they had no choice. And I was feeling so deep with him moving far, and I'm going to get emotional. So I just feel like I feel people's pain very deeply, that I sometimes had to step away from social media, I had to step away from videos because I had to show up for my clients, and needing to be okay myself, to hold space for others, and for my family that was going through a transition. And it's a lot. I think this is the first time I'm like actually visually talking about this, like publicly, not even my own social media page, but it's been overwhelming. It has. And I think checking in with ourselves and where we're at and what can we do. I think going out and protesting, for me, it felt very empowering in the moment, for a day, you know? And then I was like, oh shit, okay, what do I do next? And then having clients that were self-deporting, and that was really hard for me. That was a very hard session for me with my client, all Spanish speaking lady. She's like she's like my mom's age, you know? So there was a lot there that I was holding for her, that she was mirroring for me, because I do feel like a lot of our relationship, our therapeutic relationships, we learn so much from you guys too. And seeing her leave to Mexico and not being able to have that relationship with her anymore was so heartbreaking, because it was not something that we both really planned for, you know? And it was like a unexpected termination from one day to the other. And it was a whole process for me as a therapist, but also as just like a human being, because I'm a human being first, and second, a therapist second. So it's been a lot of different emotions for me. It's been depression, it's been anxiety, it's been rage. It's also been very empowering and going out there and doing something about it. It's been a lot. That's all I can say for now.
Definitely I think from myself, but also from what all of you are sharing, it's like we're going through the grief process.
Yeah.
Right. Like we were taught clinically all these like different phases we go through, but what's so unique and a lot of them maybe interesting, maybe not quite sure the right word, but like we're all at different phases of this process. And I think there's certain triggers that come about that kind of bring out certain emotions. You know, as all of you were talking about, like, what do you do to cope? Like, my brain works very logistically, and Kaylee knows this. And Vidi and I were talking about this a little earlier today of like, I always go to what helps soothe me, like what helps bring me answers. And it's really like this piece of like finding knowledge. The people I would get knowledge from have unfortunately passed on. And so for me, it's like, how can I scrimp together things that, whether they're letters or they're emails or something that helps me understand that things will be okay. And so as I was going through like emails and I'm looking through these letters my grandmother had written and things, there's these certain phrases of like history repeats itself. And these certain phrases that keep coming up for me. But what comes up is like this piece that like there is light at the end of the tunnel. And so as I read these things over and over again to try to get an understanding was really interesting. I was going through a letter, and my grandma loved to like cut out newspaper articles. And it was like this newspaper article because they had created the Japanese American National Museum. And I was little. I think like at the time I was probably elementary school. So we were excited to go on like a field trip with grandparents, right? And we go there, and I remember we thought it was kind of boring. There were all these buildings and like these artifacts there. And as a child, like there's nothing to play with. It's not entertaining. Right. Kaylee and I had the opportunity to go visit the same museum like maybe about a year ago. And as I think about this, my grandparents were prepping me for a point in history that would repeat itself to help me understand that my grandparents were interned, their rights were taken away. And they're trying to teach me this will happen again to another community of people. Our duty is to try to give you the knowledge so that you can be an agent for change. And so as a social worker, as a therapist, as a human being, it's like I lean on these things knowing that like we have the opportunity to be able to have these hard conversations. But it's frustrating. It makes me angry when I go visit my in-laws and I see children having to work because their parents cannot work in certain areas. It makes me angry that a lot of my chosen family and even my family are put at risk right now because the human aspect is taken out. We're just seeing them as, you know, nationality, ethnicity, whatever it is at the end of the day. But I think that it's a point I'm getting to of like, this is the world that we live in, but not letting the world affect me where it hardens me. And I think that's a constant struggle for me of like, how do I still keep the empathy and things like that? While also like fighting the good fight.
I always say, how can I take my power back? Right. Because they want us to feel all these different emotions, right? They want us to feel less. And because collectively, I do feel like obviously we are so much more powerful as a community. And it's important that we tap into our own emotions, our own triggers, our own nervous system so that we can come back stronger. So
something that, you mentioned like not letting the world harden us. When my birthday was in June, and it was right around when the ice raids were popping off, super intense. And I remember on my birthday, I was just devastated. And one of the things that I do, or I've started to do year after year, is I find like a quote or a saying, and it becomes kind of like my wallpaper of sorts. And I remember that on my birthday, I was on Pinterest. Love Pinterest. And I love Pinterest because it's a visual. I feel like it's connecting with visuals. And I remember I was just like scrolling, and there was like a wallpaper that caught my attention, and it said, "Do all things with love." And it kind of just stood out to me. And I thought, there's so much hate. There's so much injustice. It feels it's just really hard. But I thought, if we can show up with love, if we can love on each other, if we can support one another, if we can speak up, if we can protest, that counts. And so I feel like I've been holding on to that saying, you know, doing all things with love and trying to find love in day-to-day things, finding love in the work that we do, because I think as hard as it is right now to be a therapist, it's also such a gift to be able to sit across someone who, like I said, it feels like our communities are not seen for what they really are, and to be able to sit across someone and say, like, you can say whatever you want and I got you, you know, and it's truly such a privilege. And yeah, and I think to do it with love, to be able to be people that can provide love for someone else in that moment.
I definitely resonate on the fact that, like, being able to sit across from someone, even as a white skin Latina, and that privilege that I have as a lighter skin Latina, and sitting across a brown skin Latina as a client and reminding her that it is okay to feel what she was feeling. That session with that client made her feel so seen and validated, and that she wasn't going crazy. I'm like, no, you're having a normal response to an abnormal crisis collective trauma. And just saying that to her, it was like all the emotions came through of her fear of even stepping outside her house because it started to get closer to home, and seeing ice outside of her neighborhood. And her anxiety and depression was increasing. So me having to be validating that it is okay to have these responses and these emotions to an abnormal situation, that was just, I don't even know how to explain it, but I felt at the end of that session, I was like, wow, I'm just feeling very honored, and I have so much privilege as even a light-skinned Latina, as a therapist, and holding space for darker skinned people, right? Like communities, my community. So that within itself as well, there was a lot. It's been a lot. And just reminding myself, what can I do? Where's my capacity every day? How can I bring love and more compassion, or reminding clients that they have power. What can they do? How can they regulate their nervous system? How can they feel a little bit more safe to their capacity? Because that can be different for everybody.
On the surface, we see ICE raids on the news.
Yeah.
But when we look deeper, this is not just ICE raids. This is racism.
Yeah.
This is hatred.
Yes.
And it's tying back to what you were saying, Kaylee, like things coexist, right? So that hatred cannot exist without love, like good cannot exist without bad. And so I understand, like, you know, with light, with dark, these things have to coexist. And I think that piece has always remained, it's like hope for me, of like, if one exists, the other also exists. At the end of the day, the trick is like trying to find it. And how do we stay on that path of, you know, whether it's hope or whatnot, or light or dark. Because when we look at history, right, like there are people like my grandparents who were US born citizens, who had very similar things happen to them. And I've engaged in some conversations with people where they're saying, well, you know, the people who are being deported, they should have done it the right way. But that to me, that's not the issue here. The issue is that when we are different, or we embrace to have different perspectives, we're almost shunned. Our feelings are no longer valid. So kind of like your client, by acknowledging of like your feelings are valid, what you're going through. What a gift you're giving that individual, to remind them not all people are bad people.
I love what your grandmother said in those letters. It's easy to fall in our own day-to-day bubble, right? Of whatever you believe in politically or whatever, but it's easy to just fall into that bubble. And then when you zoom out many levels, that letter, I mean, it was generations back, right? And it's so true today in 2025 than it was whenever she wrote that. World apart difference. Our world looks so different back then than it does now, and it's still so very true. And I think that's the piece that I think it just hits me on the head with, like, looking back when that story I shared, right? I was playing soccer and like, I saw them, like, whoa, that's something there is there, right? I didn't know exactly what it was, but it's again, it's here, right? And it's hard, it's difficult to remind ourselves of that hope, of that good, of that love, when you see these things just happen over and over again. And I think that's kind of what sticks out to me, is like, I don't always have that hope, or maybe not that hope, that's not the right word, but I don't always feel that it's going to be great, right? And when I'm in that moment, that's when Rage Against the Machine helps, right? but it's true. Like, sometimes I don't, and sometimes I'm there, and sometimes I just need to be there. I just need to be in that for some time. I don't know when that time is. I don't know. I don't have a timer or an expiration date, right? But sometimes I just feel like I need to be in that, to allow myself to fully process it, to fully just be and to understand it, I guess, more than anything, to understand myself. And when I kind of go through that, especially when it was first happening, like, in June, there was zero part of me that wanted to love. There was zero part of me that wanted to show compassion, that wanted to, like, I wanted to fight. And and I think that's okay.
Yes.
I think it's okay to feel that and to experience that, to live to that, with every muscle, with every pore, with every thought, with every dream, with every thought. It was, and I think it helped now. I mean, I still get in that sometimes when there's moments of that, sure, but I think it's important to just, for me to share that for me to get to that hope, and it comes, don't get me wrong, it comes in glimpses, it does, right? But but it's something about, even living in that, in just that pain, or that, that anger, so that the hope maybe feels a little better. Yeah.
And that compassion and that desire for love, I think when I share kind of like what happened for me, it wasn't, I feel like the love wasn't for folks that were oppressing our people, it was sure. The love was, how do we give love to our community, because our community is so scared, and something that, we kind of took a break from all of this, because it just felt like the topics that we were talking about before, they're not relevant, right? It's just like, it wouldn't have been relevant for me to watch, and so why were we going to put that out? But, I think things that it made me think about is just kind of like that response, how you shared, like, we have different responses. And I think my immediate response was to freeze. It was to completely freeze. I felt frozen. I felt scared. And then I think through time, what I've discovered is that the only thing that sometimes seems to free me is to fight. And I think you can fight in so many different ways. I don't think, you don't got to square up with someone, I think you can fight by protesting. You can fight by showing up. You can fight by speaking up. Like, you can just fight in so many different ways, and everybody has their way. And sometimes it doesn't even have to be on big platforms, right? I think some of the fight is also within our community, having these conversations with our families, the news outlets, even Spanish news outlets, they sometimes are turning us all against each other, right? And so I think even being able to speak with family and about, like, no, that's not what's going on here in LA. This is actually what we're seeing. So, it was, I think the fight is really what feels freeing to me, even though it's scary.
I think that's part of the fight too, is like with ourselves.
Yeah.
Because we have that fear of, like, do I fight against that fear so much that I talk about hard things, that I I make myself feel uncomfortable because my voice needs to be heard, and somebody needs to hear my voice at the end of the day. Yes, we're fighting all day, every day.
We're fighters.
Yeah.
Definitely using our platforms, our words, speaking up, right? Even this is our way of fighting, holding space for this, and then within ourselves, feeling it in our bodies. Movement. I started to exercise a lot too in the process. I feel like my body just needed, when I felt stuck, right? When I felt like this freeze response, or I just feel a lot of energy in my body. It's like, I got to do something with this. And either go take a walk, take a break from whatever it is, exercise, being in community with Kaylee, meeting up and just really checking
Our
in.
voice notes. We have another podcast in our voice notes. It's like this, and then we have our own podcast every day.
It's like 5 minutes.
5 minute
oh, shoot.
voice notes.
I was like, sorry, that was a novela there. I was like, that was too long.
Reach capacity.
Exactly. So it's important to have those moments to be able to continue with life. Yeah. So I feel all those different responses.
I think part of the stuckness for me is like, I think there's such a responsibility, or at least I feel it. I feel such a responsibility in understanding my privilege. I feel such a responsibility to what can I do, but also not knowing what to do, feeling helpless in it, and then feeling like, girl, like, what? This isn't about you. It's like this inner conflict. But it was tough. It's been tough. It is tough still. But I'm glad that we're having this conversation, as nervous as I've been feeling since we were like, let's do this,
Yeah. And I think also continuing to educate ourselves on the most like updated policies and procedures and court orders and everything. Because I know obviously there's a lot more updated news on them not being able to, them meaning like ICE not being able to do how they were responding in the beginning.
Right.
racial profiling.
Yes, exactly. Right. So there's this like line of like, how much do I educate myself? How much do I try to not really overly expose myself to something that might be too triggering? But also obviously being up to date, to the most updated policies and procedures of things and court orders of things, right?
It's absolutely important to feel or to be informed.
Yeah.
And that's a whole thing, right?
Yes.
That's, part of just being educated. And let's also talk about the labor of that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Like even just hearing that, right? There's a part of me that's like, that means I gotta like start reading. I start like, going to my like, I gotta, but it's true, like, right? But there's this part of me that's like even angry that even has to happen. I have to now put in labor, effort, all of that, right, to be informed. I mean, of course I'm gonna do it. Like there's no question in my mind that I'm not, but there's still that part that's, it's underlying, it's the undercurrent of, it's adds to the frustration. It adds to the stress. It adds to the emotional stress, the impact, right? And that's just for me, someone that has so much privilege already. I can't imagine, right, what it's like for folks and families that are experiencing this like in their face,
Right.
That are living through it. Oh yeah, on top of trying to figure out how I'm going to pay rent today. How am I going to am I going to choose to go see my medical doctor today or not? Right? Am I choosing to go have the quinceañera or not? Am I choosing to go have un cafecito, or not? Right? That's already laborious thought they have to go through it to figure out if that's going to do or not, right? If they're going to do that or not. Now this other piece of oh, and by the way, also be informed. I mean, thankfully there's so many organizations are stepping up and are really providing amazing education workshops, free for the community. There's a lot of stuff on social media as well. And thankfully, a lot of those orgs are doing that.
Yeah.
But I feel like I just need to say that it's still, there's a part of me that it just, it sucks. I know I'm gonna get through it fine, but it still sucks that like we have to spend that time, that effort, that labor in order to be informed on something that shouldn't be the case.
It's just frustrating to see how difficult it is for our communities to just exist.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. I just think that like, why should we have to worry about our families, our community going out to work when they're gonna go work? They're gonna go, I don't know, go do something so that they could provide for their families. Like why does that have to be something we're scared of? And I think, you know, to the privilege component and being a white Latina, I think it's important to call it for what it is. We do have that privilege. We don't walk outside with the fear of, you know, am I going to be stopped because of the way I look? But my dad and my mom and my sister and my husband and like our communities, you know, like I feel like I was like unraveling. I was just like checking my dad's location, my mom's location. It's like I was that's all I could do. I was just like tormented by it all the time, and it has nothing to do with status and all to do with they don't have the privilege of being white. They're brown. And I think it's a hard thing to wrap my mind around too. It feels unfair that I don't have to worry about it in the way that they do. We went to Hawaii. We hadn't taken a family vacation in a long time, but we went to celebrate my parents' 35th anniversary. We were supposed to do it in 2020, but then the pandemic happened. And so then we postponed it. And so we went, and it was so beautiful to be able to celebrate my parents. But it was like the weirdest vacation ever, where it's like we were talking about what's going on at home every day, every single day. And it was like this weirdness of like, we want to celebrate all that this is and we want to enjoy all that this is. But then I could see it in my dad's face. Just, my dad's a no pasa nada, todo va a estar bien kind of guy. But to kind of just see him taking it all in. My dad's a more quiet person. And so, of course, my mom, my sister, and I were like talking. My husband's driving, you know, and we're just like going about like, and this and that. And we have to, you know, and I could just see it. Like, I could see my dad just kind of silent, you know, because I think he was understanding like, oh shit, like this is for real. And it was tough. It was tough to have that vacation end, because I felt like I can't protect my dad. I can't protect my sister. I can't protect my mom. It's like, I just can't do it. But it was the weirdest thing. And I've heard from clients, you know, just that there's been a lot of guilt that has come up for them as just like to enjoy something when, you know, their parents can't or their families can't or their friends' family can't. Like, it's a hard thing to have multiple truths be happening at once.
I think even just sitting with what you said, that when we see our parents' face, just the knowing, they don't even have to say anything.
No, nada.
Like, just the knowing, like we know. And that's I don't know if that's like such a trauma response or just even this like internal knowing that even though I'm sitting in my privilege, I know that my ancestors, my grandparents, this inner knowing that the pain that they went through as well, it's in me, it's in us, right? And it's very painful, and having us to try to also bring in joy, because that is part of that process to resist everything, right? The resistance, but it's important. It is so important to tap into the joy, and because we are here because of them. And yeah, it's difficult though, like you said. It's really hard to hold all those parts, different parts. The duality of pain, the heaviness, And just even taking a deep breath right now, right? And feeling it in your body just by even listening to us. It's important that you even check in with yourself right now. As you're listening to our stories, what we're sharing with you, what's resonating, tapping into what we've shared so far, take a deep breath. Tap into how you're doing. We hope that, just by listening to us right now, you can resonate and you're feeling less alone.
It was when we last met, kind of in preparation for this meeting, we talked about like westernized cultures versus like other cultures around the world. What's coming up for me is we think of like privileges as people who, live in this country. There's often privileges that we have when we travel to other countries and things like that. And we talked a little bit about how, like, I don't know if it's an American thing of like this invincibility that, like, well, it's not happening to me, so I'm not going to worry about it. And I think that's what makes it that much harder when things do happen to our communities. It's like literally like a slap in the face. And I always try to see, okay, what is like light at the end of the tunnel here? Like, what is the takeaway from these things? And it's like from our generation in particular that's gone through COVID or going through all these like political things going on of like how it changes us. And then so for the next generation that we teach them of like, you're not invincible. You are a human being existing in this very large world in a lot of ways. And that's why it's so important to continue to fight even when things seem okay.
To share story, I feel that the reality is that sometimes we as people don't care enough until it happens to our community. And the reality is that if all of our communities were actually hearing one another, seeing what's really going on, if we were like, I'm not that much different, to thinking about like what your grandparents went through, it not being much different from the Latino community right now. It's like, we're not different. It's not because it's happening to them, it's not happening to us. I feel like if any group is being oppressed, then it's just a matter of like, who's next? Who's next? And so how can we call ourselves in on caring more, about our communities, but also other communities?
I always like to think that like similarities are great. Your similarities can kind of, bond us together, but it's differences that can really make individuals respect each other. It's no surprise here. Like I am the only non-Latino one sitting here.
You're honorary.
Yeah,
You're honorary.
Thank you. Thank you.
Honorary.
Well, like how much respect I have for you all, and it's mutual, right? In a lot of ways, because we can see each other in different lights and really embrace those differences, but also see the similarities between our communities to make them stronger.
That piece, I love the piece of the invincibility piece, right? Yeah, it's so easy to forget, right? I mean, it wasn't your grandparents' generation wasn't that long ago. It was not that long ago. Like for everyone listening, like imagine your grandparents right now, whether they passed on or whether they're living. That's how long ago it was. That's not a long time. Like I know with everything we do, we get busy, we forget, we're in our bubbles, etc. But like that's just not a long time for it to repeat again, or repeating, or a sense of that. And that I think what I'm saying is what's repeating is that same notion, that same ideology, right at the heart of it. We mentioned earlier, right? When you look different, you look other, that's what's being attacked. It's not about doing it the right way, it's not about doing it the wrong way, it's not about about assimilating or non-assimilating. It's about just looking or being the other. And that's kind of the theme that's been progressing for generations.
I know that Brandon we were sharing earlier about how sometimes media, right, like they like to confuse us, and they use certain terms, or yeah, just overall confuse us. But I know you shared something with me earlier that I thought like you should bring up and just kind of bring some light. You know what I mean? Like I just feel like sometimes, even with myself, I'm like, yeah, that's so true. Just terminology,
Language.
language, certain words, right? Yeah, because obviously education levels, right? And they just want to confuse you so that way you don't know your rights and you don't know what to do. And then they can control you, right?
Verbiage and terminology is so important.
Yeah.
And as I was mentioning, I was going through letters and emails from my mentor. And as I was reading them, he brought up this really interesting concept of like higher powers will use certain words to soften certain images. So, what comes to mind now is the word of detention center being used.
Yeah.
When in my grandparents' day, the word internment camp was being used. And what my mentor had written in this article that I was reading, he had linked in a letter to me, was that they're concentration camps. They're American-style concentration camps. And he said that, but that word is so loaded that if we were to use that now, what potentially could kind of be unleashed because of that. So let's call them detention centers. But as we've seen on the news, these things are not
No.
what I can imagine as a detention center. People are being treated as animals. Animals shouldn't even been treated like that.
Exactly.
And so it's just very important to look at terminology. Why are they using it? It's not just, it is what it is. At the end of the day, we need to look deeper. We need to have these deep conversations so we can start questioning why are they doing what they're doing. This topic today, guys, has been very heavy, not only emotionally, but also physically. So we were going to break this episode up into 2 parts. So please stay tuned for part 2.